We're on the Mississippi River here at Vicksburg, Mississippi. We came out to set some trot lines and trawl for pallid and shovel-nosed sturgeon. This is a typical operation. We've been engaging in this type of field work for now about 15 years. Really, our involvement started back in the year 2000. The pallid sturgeon was listed as endangered in 1993. By the year 2000, there had been jeopardy biops issued by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on the pallid sturgeon in the Missouri River. And by jeopardy biop, I meant that the Corps' projects on the Missouri was threatening the continuing existence of pallid sturgeon. Well, shortly thereafter, the Fish and Wildlife Service issued another jeopardy biop for the middle Mississippi River. So now the Corps was dealing with two jeopardy biops that were directly affecting their navigation and flood control projects on the Missouri-Mississippi River. So the Mississippi Valley Division in 2000, seeing what was going on upriver, came to ERDEC and asked us if we would start evaluating the status and trends of the pallid sturgeon populations. And that began our field research on pallid sturgeon. Well, over the next 10 years, we worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Jackson Field Office, worked with some of the states and the universities, and we came up with a database that clearly showed that the pallid sturgeon in the lower Miss were healthy. The population seemed to be recruiting. You see young of the year coming in using our trawls that we've just demonstrated, and overall the status in the lower Miss was a lot different than the Missouri and the middle Miss. And so we worked with Fish and Wildlife Service, provided this data, wrote a conservation plan, which is the section A1 of the Endangered Species Act, which allows the action agency, and this course was the Corps of Engineers, to evaluate the status of the endangered species and develop conservation measures and then present that to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for their consideration. So that's exactly what we did. Not only the pallid sturgeon, but we also have the least tern and the Fat Pocketbook mussel. So we covered all three of those species in the conservation plan. We then presented this conservation plan to the Fish and Wildlife Service formally, and they issued a biological opinion and incorporated the conservation measures that we all agreed upon based upon the 10 years of research that we did. And the Corps now has an agreement to continue to monitor pallid sturgeon, which is what we're doing today, work with the Lower Mississippi River Conservation Committee, Fish and Wildlife Service, who are continuing to notch closing dikes and secondary channels, and we're evaluating some of the benefits of that. By opening up the river, maintaining connectivity, you provide additional habitat for sturgeon. And then also look at some of the potential impacts of the construction projects. So we are monitoring, using sonic telemetry, we're monitoring the distribution of pallid sturgeon relative to the mat sinking unit, which is the operation for bank stability, and they'll put out the articulated concrete mattresses. We also are monitoring entrainment through the Old River Control Structure, which is about 300 miles downstream. That actually is that's the only major Corps project that is part of the Mississippi River and Tributaries Project, the MR&T, that's not covered under this present biological opinion. So once we finish the monitoring at Old River, then we'll present that information to the Fish and Wildlife Service, and then they will issue us a biological opinion. So overall, the cooperation and the coordination here in the Lower Miss has resulted in a robust research and monitoring program that both the Corps and the Fish and Wildlife Service are very happy and pleased about.
One of the things that makes the Lower Mississippi River such a spectacular place is that it is a free-flowing river, unlike the Upper Mississippi River. And we are very fortunate down here that even though the original floodplain of the Mississippi River has been reduced significantly by the construction of levees, we still have a very naturally functioning river. We have a very dynamic hydrograph. The river can change in elevation, 50, 60 feet within a year's time frame. And it's really important also that we have a variety of habitats for species such as the pallid sturgeon.
If you go from Gavin's Point Dam on the Missouri down to the mouth of the Missouri, and then from that point down to the mouth of the Mississippi River, you have 2,500 miles of unobstructed waterway. It's the longest free-flowing aquatic corridor in the United States. There's plenty of habitat, and because it is free-flowing over 1,500 miles, we feel very confident that the pallid sturgeon will continue to thrive in this reach of the river.